Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. There's a quote that I've been replaying in my mind for the last 24 hours or so that I promise is relevant to today's story, in moral value if not in a narrative one. When Guardians defeated one of the most iconic foes in Destiny's history, Oryx the Taken King, there was a character watching the entire event unfold in the background. His name is Toland the Shattered, and he understood the nature of the evil that had just been defeated. He also saw the consequences. He saw the Guardians walking away from the corpse of a god, and saw the power vacuum, a space left in a pantheon that could destroy stars and civilizations. It's a value judgment, but Toland saw this as a terrible mistake. We didn't hear him calling out to us in the Ascendant Plane, but he said this: "You fools, you disastrous, bumbling squanderers. You might have been kings and queens of the deep, but you have toppled Oryx, and you have not replaced him." From then on, if you find Toland the Shattered in his astral form, a small orb of light penetrating only from the Ascendant Plane, he will call you a few different titles, particularly if you have killed Oryx, either in Destiny 1 or Destiny 2. Slayer of Oryx, Sharp One, but amongst those titles he will also call you Squanderer. A decade removed from the Taken King and its events, Destiny 2's end of service update has gone live, and it appears incredibly clear now that the narrative team was forced to make a harrowing choice. Option 1: quickly and messily bring their current saga to a conclusion that inevitably would be unsatisfying and full of holes. Or option 2: unpick the interesting threads that were going to be made and leave them hanging and on display so that we might know where the story was going to be headed. That is an impossible choice to have to make, but faced with only a few months and the prospect of Destiny having a mediocre send-off that it didn't deserve, the narrative team chose option 2. And if there was ever to be a future for Destiny, I think they were right to do so. This means, however, that in-game now, with this final update, the narrative team has laid bare character threads that were being set up in the Fate Saga, and have shown us where the story was ultimately going. Most of these are intriguing and heartwarming moments that are also tragic because of the potential that Bungie's universe held. Narrative beats that could have been entire expansions on their own were reduced to lore tabs and small conversations with characters in-game. Destiny's voice cast, as usual, has been excellent, but it has been particularly heart-wrenching to watch each member of that cast give their swan song performances. But amongst it all, there is a secret ending that is only accessible after having completed enough triumphs. This ending is what broke me. Not because it made me sad or wistful, not because it is bad, it is actually a good bit of content. It broke me because it made me go straight back through the stages of grief to anger. To be exceedingly clear without going into spoilers, again, this ending is not poorly written. It is not bad. It lives up to the legacy of great moments in Destiny, and I'm not mad at the narrative team for having crafted it. No, I am mad all over again because it has made a shattered one of me. Now, just like Toland, I find myself calling out into the void to someone who is walking away and will probably be unable to hear me, because I too am calling them fools, disastrous, bumbling squanderers. I'm being vague about the contents of this ending because here at this moment, I want to drop a spoiler warning for all of you. Anyone who hasn't played or seen it for yourself, turn off now and return to this video later. If you're intent on seeing it here and you don't mind being spoiled, you'll see it in a moment. You'll know when you're caught up. I'll see you in the forest when you are. For those of you that have seen it, or who would like to see it here instead, this is effectively the final note that Destiny's story has been left on. It reveals where the current Fate Saga was headed. It shows that unlike the meandering days of Destiny's first Light and Dark saga, there was a plan for the Fate Saga. It also reveals that our ultimate enemy was just around the corner, and that the conflict with the Nine was only an opening act, an abstraction. This is where the Fate Saga was really going.
Hello, my good chum. There's blood on our hands, isn't there? From this little spat. Even they know it. That our meeting is inevitable. The Eternal Nine. Big deal. Between you and me, who isn't? You know, the pieces they want you to knock down are already set. Ending with me. Showdown at the end of time between champions of dark and light. That's why they courted you. Impress their own importance upon you. They need your violence because I exist. But they don't get to put you on hold and walk away. Drag those 8 egos back in. Do what you do best. Impose your will. That's what a weapon's for, after all. End it on your terms. This is what you wanted, isn't it? In your heart of hearts. Don't worry. When it's over, I won't abandon you. Take a breather. Take your libations. Let that vigor seep back into your bones. Get hungry.
That wasn't a 9. But it knew you. Very well. I don't know what that was.
Some of you who are Destiny veterans might understand what just happened. For the rest of you who are confused, I'll explain. The man there that was talking was called Lodi. He is an emissary of the Nine. As an emissary, he is unique because he has the ability to host consciousnesses of larger beings, beings greater than himself. He can only do this briefly, but frequently this ability is used to call upon beings known as the Nine in Destiny. They're essentially gods tied into the gravity of the planets of our solar system. That's a big simplification, but it gets the idea across. As Lodi said at the end of the conversation, what possessed him there was not one of the Nine. It was a different god entirely. To put it plainly, and with all of my years of lore knowledge going into this, even with just a cursory look at things, I can tell you definitively that entity that possessed Lodi was a figure known as the Winnower. Those who saw the end of the final shape may know of something that's named a little similarly, if only because it starts with a W and an I. The main antagonist of the Light and Dark saga, the Witness. It's the one that sent the pyramid ships to Earth, caused the collapse, which is the apocalypse of Destiny, and for the longest time it was presumed by characters both in lore and in real life that it was the source of the darkness itself. But of course, those linked in with the lore would know that there was always a fair degree of mystery surrounding who the real source of true darkness was. And in the end, it was revealed that the Witness was lying to us for its own gain, that it was never the true source of darkness in this universe. What's more, the Witness made it clear in the final raid of the Light and Dark saga, Salvation's Edge, that it was distinct and separate from the Winnower. For those not versed in the lore, I will put it really simply as to how big the Winnower is. The Winnower effectively created the Witness. The Witness and all those that made it up might have chosen to become what they became, but the Winnower absolutely still had a hand in their creation. The Winnower is such a big deal that it supersedes time. It was there before time and the universe began. It's not right to call it the first entity, because it existed before the concept of something being first. It is inherent to the universe, if its own tales are to be believed. It is a part of the universe you cannot destroy because it is immutable, like gravity or light. or mass. It has been there to steer the course of entire factions in Destiny's history, like the Hive, and it has watched us since we first set foot upon the mortal plane as Guardians. It knows our actions intimately. It watched us destroy the Witness. It watched us pick up the Tablets of Ruin. It watched us kill Oryx. It has been watching. And in this moment here, where Lodi has been possessed by the Winnower in front of a shard of the Traveler in the EDZ, Bungie's narrative team essentially laid out their game plan for where the Fate Saga was going to go. The Nine have been enacting the chaos of the Fate Saga's events because there is only one thing that they fear. They can see through time itself and experience every moment of it. They understand that the actions of beings from their births to deaths mostly don't affect them, but they have looked to the end of the universe and seen one thing that could truly challenge them, one thing that could nullify them and destroy them. It is one of the only things they fear because it is synonymous with death itself, and that thing is the Winnower. This thing created the universe through conflict. This thing that is the true progenitor of the philosophy of sword logic that is so famous in Destiny. The idea that something can only exist if it is strong enough to survive and kill anything that might rise to challenge it. This conflict between the champions of light and darkness at the end of time was the real conflict at the heart of the Fate Saga and where things were headed. It was not a battle between the members of the Nine and those that they held in their sway. To put it in terms that might be better understood by people who've not played Destiny, because I imagine there might be a few of you, I want you to instead think of a popular franchise like Lord of the Rings. The last major big bad that we killed, which was the Witness, is a little bit like Saruman in Lord of the Rings. Powerful and evil and corrupted and capable of great destruction, but ultimately, he was laid low and handed a sizable defeat at the end of the second book. For the second film, it's an ultimate defeat, and the events of the third, of course, change it significantly, but we're getting into the weeds. Point is, Saruman was not the ultimate evil. He was just a puppet of the true enemy in Lord of the Rings. Sauron, the Dark Lord who lives in Mordor, the one who created the One Ring, the real enemy of the entire story, who has been emphasized but in the background all along. If the Fate Saga and Destiny's story at large stops here and never proceeds from this moment, it'd be a bit like stopping the story of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's universe generally at the end of the Two Towers and never seeing the return of the king, never getting that third book in the trilogy. We will never see what could have come from this saga. The great plot threads that were unpicked and left for us to see are tragic because they represent entire expansions worth of content, as I said. We will never get to see the battle between Keitel and Xivu Arath, an empress of a war-bound empire and a god of war herself. We will never get to see the Awoken's original homeland, a place where Mara might go to find her lover, a place bound from time and space and dimension. We will never understand the dark plots of Savathûn and how she planned to pursue vengeance and ultimately escape our reality by ascending into some kind of higher being. We will never see what was meant to happen in Old Chicago, the mysteries that were going to be revealed in the next expansion, Shattered Cycle, mysteries that might well have led to this reveal under different circumstances. We will never see how we as the fated weapon bound the Nine and brought them into our fold so that we might fight against a greater threat that potentially led to humanity's extinction. And we will never see how the conflict with the Winnower, the one who burnt down the Tree of Silver Wings in the Black Garden, the one who created the primal patterns of the universe, the one who ruled the flower game at the beginning of time, we will never see how that conflict was meant to play out. And so perhaps you can understand best now why I look at this moment and feel so bitter. I've covered the story of this game for a decade and followed it since the beginning 3 years prior to that. And now, just like Toland the Shattered, I am left standing before a throne left vacant that should be filled. I am left to marvel at the foolish, bumbling squanderers who let a universe I love fall into a point of ruin. To talk about real video game economics for just a second, there are a lot of sound financial reasons why making a video game like Destiny is so expensive. We've all heard the floated figures that it would essentially take $500 million by some estimates to make a third Destiny. There is a huge risk of making a franchise like this continue. Here's the thing though. Destiny has been getting sabotaged by decisions over the last 3 years, and always by people who were capable and potentially would have been able to make such a call and would have been able to take such a risk, but who were unwilling to bet on a relatively sure thing at first, which then fell into a much harder gamble to justify. And all of this happened because of their own actions. I am of course referring to both Bungie and Sony in this, but let's look at Sony's part for this particular notion. Live service games are a little bit like a tree. If you don't water the tree or give it the nutrition to feed its roots, it will wither and die. Equally, live service games need nurturing. By laying off employees, refusing to allow Bungie to continue and confirm the future of Destiny to its audience, and by slimming down the content offerings for Destiny, Sony has essentially neglected to nurture the game and the franchise and its future. They were refusing to water the tree. They were not refreshing the soil to give it new nourishment. And the thing is, these actions were not taken in isolation. They were not completely made private, because when you lay off developers, when you slim down the game, and when you essentially project a smaller version of Destiny, those are all signs to the general population and the player base that Destiny was slowing down. Of course, all these choices are made from a budgetary perspective. They're designed with the idea that the team will slim down and become more efficient, and that they'll be able to do more with less. These actions are not purely budgetary, because they have consequences past the balance sheet. Every time Sony moved to make a more nimble version of Bungie, with a version of Destiny being made with fewer staff, Sony was sending a message that they weren't nurturing their tree, they were neglecting it. They were squandering it. And so, players left, and the cycle repeated, and Destiny's decline became a self-fulfilling prophecy. You cannot have returns on investment if you refuse to invest, and that is ultimately what I think Sony has done here. It's hard to make financial calls when none of us know the balance sheet, but I think this logic rings true as a player, because I speak of the lived experience of people who have seen this franchise go this particular direction. It's the reason people came back now, even when they didn't for the expansions of Edge of Fate and Renegades. It's the reason that people left after the final shape, and why the player base took a massive hit when it came to the layoffs, both after the final shape and during the season of The Witch. Whenever a studio or their publisher projects a sign that the game is going to be smaller, slower, and lesser, the player base reacts in response. They give a reciprocal reaction. Whenever you neglect your live service game, people will not play it, because they do not know if there is a future for it. As a result, and perhaps surprisingly to no one, the best time for Sony to have greenlit Destiny 3 was when they acquired Bungie. The second best time is now. That bet on Destiny 3 gets a lot harder to make now because of their own actions, because they have squandered their best chance to make Destiny successful. This, of course, isn't only on Sony. I've been focusing on them, but of course Bungie's own leadership has been disastrously veering from mess to mess and mistake to mistake for years now. They too are amongst the vast reasons that this universe has been squandered and all of its potential is at risk. They share the blame, but this final decision, which a fair swath of the industry at large is also equally baffled by, was also Sony's decision. And so I focus on them in this moment. If you think that that balance is unfair, don't worry, I've done my fair share of talk about the misadventures of those who buy too many cars in previous bits of content. All the things I've said about sentiment make no difference to a bottom line and a balance sheet, but I think I need to appeal to one other idea, which is simply that games, and for that matter any source of media that you fund, is not just a revenue source. Games can be art, entertainment, and also a place to meet friends. They are third spaces where people can experience joy and challenge and laughter. There is no monetary value in such things, but anyone who's got a heart knows that such things shouldn't be observed in the context of return on investment, or a projection of growth, or whether something hits its revenue targets. Game making is always an alchemy, because there are two sides to it, one that is financial and one that is artistic. It might be tempting to say that the financial side of it is always more important, and in practical terms, one side cannot exist without the other. But I think that logic needs to equally apply to the artistic side, where someone is creating a beautiful thing that players want to interact with. People are not signing up to play Skinnerbox, the experience of time wasting, where you only push buttons all day arbitrarily and fill bars to line someone else's pocket. The artistic side of games is what enables money to be made in the first place, because you wouldn't be playing Destiny if it didn't feel good to shoot, or didn't have an engaging story, or didn't have great endgame raids, or didn't have a social fabric that pulled you together, or didn't have Crucible, or even Gambit. These are things that change it from a soulless experiment in lining someone else's pocket to a game that people want to buy and play. This is what turns progression into meaning. This is what keeps people playing. This is why you are successful in the first place. My plea, for as little as it might be heard, is for anyone who watches this that does have some degree of sway or control to remember that this is not just a financial risk, but it is also something deeply human. Like lots of video games, this is art. It was made with care. It is worth continuing to invest in. And no, it isn't perfect, but nothing truly can be. It is flawed, but it is special in spite of those flaws. If there is anyone watching who has some position of power, I encourage you to return to the balance sheets. Remember that this art has potential beyond what your return on investment might be initially, but it has potential to be great. And figure out a way to continue making Destiny in some form. Do not let this franchise fall into nothingness. Because though it is my opinion, I know I'm not alone when I say that I believe Destiny has the potential to not only make you a ton of money, but also to be a remarkable piece of art, all at the same time. It is a risk, I grant that. That is a hard fact. That is a reality of the situation. But to not take this opportunity is equally a risk, because you are at risk of leaving something great to wither. You are the one who holds the reins, if you are indeed hearing this, as I hope you are. The decision, of course, is yours to make, and you see now, perhaps, that there is more than just a number here. There is more than just a financial statement. There is potential. I ask you to nurture it, not squander it. Please. The choice, if you are hearing this, is hopefully in your hands. For the rest of you watching, thank you very much. I will be resuming my normal lore content going forward. I will be making sure that I cover the last update here to Destiny, and I will be around for a long time after that. If you want to support my content generally and get your name in the credits of this video, you can support me over on Patreon. Even if you don't have money, you can go there to support me for free. Of course, supporting me here on YouTube also helps. Remember to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership as always has been quite enough for me. Ad Astra et Ultra. I'll see you Starside.